All
Um,
right. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Brendan, should I introduce you?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and introduce me? I like it when you
Okay,
introduce me.
perfect. Okay, so this is Brendan, one of our incredible environment artists. And I'm Tobbs, aka Tasha. And well, you probably know who I am, but I'm part of the creator relations team here. And today we're going to be learning from the fount of knowledge that
Uh-huh.
is Brendan. And, anyways, Brendan, I'm just going to throw it over to you and throne.
Cool. So I was thinking today, since the last time I did a stream a while ago, we did a sci-fi scene. And there's been a lot of really cool fantasy assets that we've shipped since
Mhm.
then. So I was kind of thinking maybe today it would be good to do a fantasy scene. I've also seen a lot of cool fantasy projects that people are working on.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and yeah, where to start? Well, I don't really have a huge plan, but I was thinking to start, we should do some terrain, maybe do some sculpting, painting, foliage, that kind of thing. Have a good
Heck yeah.
a good foundation for any sort of outdoor fantasy adventure. Last time I did a stream, we started with a generated terrain. So I was thinking maybe we'd mix it up this time and use an imported terrain. Um,
Ooh.
and so first thing I want to show is this fantastic website called Tangram Height Mapper, which if you ever want to use an imported terrain, this is the best one that I've found for finding them. It's basically a Google map, but it's all height data only, and you can just pick a spot anywhere in the world, and it'll stream in the high-res data, and then you just hit this little export button, and it'll export it as an image. A height map, if you don't know, it's basically just a top-down projection where black is the lowest point and white is the highest
Mm.
point, and everything in between just gets filled in. So I did this earlier. I picked a spot somewhere in British Columbia because I love all these great peaks with all these
Oh, nice.
rivers and crevices and stuff. And I found, let's see, this kind of little valley area with a bunch of peaks and rivers running through it. Threw it in Photoshop, made it a square, 1024, blurred it a little bit because usually if you import raw height data into Core, you get some pretty jagged terrain that's kind of hard to navigate. So doing
Hmm.
a little Gaussian blur on it is always a good way to start. So that's what we've got, and why don't I try importing that, and we'll see what happens. So pick my height map, got it right here. Not really going to change anything. I am going to bring the height offset. So this is in meters. So I tried this earlier, and when I originally generated it, it was kind of a bit high up in the scene. So I just want to bring it down like 20 meters, just so it's a little more close to 000. I don't have a weight map. A weight map is if you kind of want to pre-paint your terrain. Like
Oh.
you can actually do that in Photoshop or something using red, green, and blue as your channels for different materials.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's useful for if you're using generated terrain from a different piece of software.
Mm.
It'll allow you to do cool maps where you can like pick everything between these slopes I want to be red and stuff like that. But anyways, we're not doing that today. So
That's a stream for another time.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so here's our thing. Oh, you know what? Actually, I'm gonna redo it one more time because I want this is good, but I was kind of hoping for something a little more dramatic, so I'm gonna increase the height a little bit. I think, yeah, you can't actually do that after you've generated the terrain, so I'm gonna import it one more time.
What? Okay.
Yeah, just bear with me.
Oh, I thought you said you can change it after you
No,
import it. I
no,
was
you
like,
cannot.
oh,
So,
learning all sorts of things
yeah,
already.
no, you used to, but that's been fixed. It's better this way, trust me. So I'm gonna give it a 1.5 height multiplier. That's just gonna make everything 50% taller. Import it
Nice.
again. There we go. We've got some more dramatic cliffs now. Kind of, yeah. All right. So, got our starting terrain. I'm going to delete the default floor because we don't need that big cube.
Yeah, get out of here, default floor.
Yeah. So, the thing I was kind of thinking about was I think it would be neat to do like a road going through a forest, maybe. Maybe up in the hills we could have like a dungeon entrance. And then last night I was browsing Twitter and I saw somebody posted this cool image, which I liked. In the latest,
Oh.
yeah, I don't think I want to try replicating this directly, but I'm definitely going to take some inspiration from it. It's by an artist named the artist Julian, at the artist Julian on Twitter. You always got to cite your sources.
Yes.
Um, yeah, but I like this the beam of light coming out of the ruins here. So I think maybe we could do something like that. One of the something that just got pushed to core yesterday is we have templates for fantasy weapons now. And if we're going to run around in a fantasy scene, we should probably have a sword, right? So
That
maybe.
sounds accurate.
So I'm thinking maybe
Yeah.
we make a sword shrine. So why don't we do? Let's see. What's a good spot? This looks like it might be a cool spot for a dungeon entrance. Kind of this little crevice in the hills here. And maybe we put our sword shrine kind of down here in the valley. And kind of do a road up there. What do you think? Sound good?
Yeah.
Let's make this
Yeah,
terrain.
no complaints so far. I can't really argue with that.
Yeah, let's make this terrain a little more palatable. So I'm going to create a terrain material in the paint. And then we can get a little better idea of what it might look like color-wise. First thing I'm going to do, something that I recommend you always do, is these cliffs are really noisy, and you can definitely see the tiling.
Oh, what do you mean by noisy?
Well, just there's this really jagged pattern that's obvious, and you can see it repeats.
Okay.
It repeats, and it looks fake, right?
Yeah.
Because of the way it repeats. So by hitting the edit material button, it pulls up the editor for the terrain materials, and I know the thumbnails aren't working yet. This will eventually be fixed, but I know that this is the grass and this is the cliff on this first slot here, because it's grass on top, cliff on the side. That's what the diagonal means. So I know that by editing this side scale, I can adjust the tiling on the cliffs. So I'm just going to bring that down a little bit. And you can see they're already starting to react. I'm going to bring it down to, no, not that much, maybe. Yeah. So you can see I'm reducing how many times the material repeats, the texture of the material. And so that kind of hides the fact that it's tiling as much. And I think just overall kind of looks better. You get a little
already looks so much
you get
better.
a little more sense of scale, So yeah, definitely first thing I would recommend if you're going to be using a cliff material like this. And then what we should probably do is get right into sculpting. So I make this mistake all the time. I get a terrain in and I get really excited and I want to start painting it and adding foliage. But you really should do your sculpting, as much of your sculpting ahead of time as you can. And I'll show you why. In core, all the terrain is voxel based. So when you paint on the terrain, I'm going to paint some dirt here. In a traditional height-map only based terrain editor, you're basically just kind of projecting paint down onto the ground, and you can move the ground up and down, but the paint will still stay there. But I'm actually just painting directly onto the voxels in this case, which means that if I start to sculpt, what I'm actually doing is I'm adding voxels on top of the existing voxels. So it's the voxels themselves that got the new dirt color, right? Does that make sense? Am I making sense? So yeah, so it's really just this top layer of grass that has become dirt. And any voxels above or below it still have the grass material. So anyways,
it's truly just that layer of voxels that's getting
exactly. It's like it's like terrain in Minecraft, right? So it's like the first layer of blocks is dirt, but every layer below it right now is grass, because grass is the default. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do some sculpting first, and I just kind of want to sculpt out where our little play areas are going to be. So we said we were going to put the shrine over here. So I'm going to mostly use the level brush. Level brush is probably one of the most useful brushes I find. I'm just going to use it to kind of flatten an area out. Right? Actually, you know what? It'd be cooler if our shrine was up a little bit. So let's actually sculpt up a little. Sculpt a little hill. Put our shrine at the top of the hill, maybe. And then we can use the level brush to flatten out the top of the hill.
And then do you use any hotkeys for terrain sculpting?
Yes. Probably one of the most useful hotkeys is the comma and period keys, which are actually the left and right angle brackets. Those will change the size of your brush as you're painting, so that's pretty useful. Otherwise, I'm just kind of navigating around using WASD and the mouse, just like if you're editing anything else in Core or playing any other game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to smooth this out a little bit. Do we have anybody in chat, by the way, Tops? Anybody chiming
Oh
in with
my gosh,
questions or anything?
we do. I've just been silent on it. I didn't want to interrupt you, but
No problem.
Oz Barney says, looking forward to this stream.
Nice.
X Phoenix 77 says, I have work to do, but this is too good.
Already?
And
We're barely
then,
started.
yeah, and then Hein says, hi, it's like Bob Ross in 3D. I can't leave. And Lob all says, happy little dungeon.
Uh-huh.
Oh, and then we do have a question from Oz Barney.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a change coming for that? I have a mostly dirt terrain and I have to repaint every time I add voxels.
That is unfortunately, as far as I understand, just kind of a limitation of how voxels work. I know, unfortunately, the terrain editor is not our primary focus right now. We will eventually be coming back to it, and I'm sure, well, I'm not sure because I'm not a programmer. I didn't write this. But our fantastic terrain lead, Victor, I'm sure could come up with a way that maybe there's a setting when you paint that tells you how deep you want to paint. Like it'll actually paint the voxels below just that first layer. That would be nice. But I unfortunately have no idea when or if something like that would be coming. Yeah. So hopefully.
Yeah.
We definitely have a large bucket list of changes that I mean, the terrain editor already is fantastic. It is one of the best terrain editors I have personally used in my career.
Oh, wow.
But,
I think it's the only terrain editor I've used in my career. So it is the best one. Yeah, shout out to Victor.
Yep.
Who actually, we started using his plugin for the Unreal Engine in Core, and then we ended up hiring him. And I think his work speaks for itself. It's pretty incredible.
Yep, definitely.
We also have a few questions in chat. Phoenix asks, can you change the default texture from grass to dirt?
Yes, you can. That is very easy. Just hit the Edit Materials button. Whatever material you put here, these are your first two slots, which is the top and the sides of the first slot. So we could make bark our default material or bricks. Yeah. So anything that comes up in this catalog is fair game.
Cool.
So yeah, that's a quick way to fix your problem there, maybe.
Phoenix says cool as well. Schoolally Skull says, how many layers can we have? I think this is referring to layers of voxels.
I am not sure what the max limit on voxels. It's very high. I believe you can go 1024 high by 1024 by 1024. Don't quote me on that. It's definitely somewhere in the documentation. If you're referring to paint layers, you are maxed out at 4, but each layer has separate material for top and sides if you so desire. I wish there were more, but it is an interesting challenge to figure out how to get everything you want in just 4 layers, and it's usually enough. So something I'm doing here, making a ramp with kind of any sculpting tool is difficult, and my kind of preferred method is to just basically make stairs and then kind of smooth the transition between each stair. So this is something that I definitely find handy. It's something I use all the time, so I just kind of want to make a little ramp.
Wait, I missed the name of this one. What is it called? The smoothing one?
Okay, yeah. So I used the level tool initially. And the level tool, you can see a preview of exactly what it's going to do. It's basically, it's a big cylinder. If you hold Alt, you can carve the terrain in a cylinder shape, or just normally it just, bumps it out in a cylinder shape, right? So I just made basically made stairs using the level tool by just, it snaps to whatever is under the cursor. So I'm just kind of coming down the side of the cliff a little bit, clicking, bumps it out, and then switch back over to the smooth tool and just smooth out the transitions a little more.
And then we have another comment from Osbarney.
Mm-hmm.
He says it would be nice if it applied the current material. If I change the default, I'll have to repaint everything.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way around that that you know of, so he doesn't have to repaint anything?
That is an excellent question. Do we have any fill options? I'm not sure if we do. There is. Yeah. I would love a fill tool to be added, but it does not currently exist. So apologies.
Yeah, that would be a nice feature.
Yep. You might be able to, let's see. I can't remember if there's a way to export your terrain as a height map and then re-import it as a new terrain. But
Oh my gosh, I don't think there is, because I tried it recently.
Okay.
Ooh, another feature that I will save for core feedback on our Discord.
Yep. Okay, so I'm just jumping in here with the player really quick just to test the slope of my ramp. I want to make sure that I can run up it with the default settings, and that seems to be the case. So that's pretty good. So all right, that feels pretty good. We can feel like it has a pretty good size of a platform up here that we can add some details in. So let's think about our next kind of point of interest, which would be our dungeon entrance. We decided we were going to go over here, so this one I'll do really quick because I think this mountain is a pretty good size to start carving into. I'm a little worried that we start carving a tunnel into the side of this mountain and it'll just come out this other side. So I'm gonna bulk up the outside of this mountain a little bit, and I'll use a different tool for this. I'm gonna use the shape tool. So by default, shape tool is just a sphere, and you can make a sphere of voxels. Which, I mean, this is what's fun about voxels. You can never do this in a height map based editor. Have all these cool 3D shapes and overhangs, but you can change the shape. And I'm gonna change it to something nice and organic, like a rock. And then I'm just going to size it up a whole lot. Right now, you can see it's orienting to the slope of whatever's under the brush. And so if you turn off align to normal, now the rock is just straight up and down. And I can hit advanced settings. I actually have full control over the kind of size and scale of this rock. So I'm going to scale the X and Y up a little bit. Oh, not that much. Just make it a little wider, and so I have a nice mountain shape out of my rock now, and that looks pretty terrible, but we will fix that with the smoothing tool. So yeah, I'm just going to bulk up this mountain a little more, and making this a little more of a dramatic peak will draw more interest to it as well. That's something that in the level design and environment art world we call a weenie, which is actually a Disney term from the Disney parks. They coined the term initially, and it's just a high point that you can kind of see from anywhere in the level, and it's like a point of interest that will draw people towards it, and it serves as kind of a navigational aid, right? You kind of know exactly where you are if you can find a weenie, right? And then see how the relative size of it. Like a really good example, if you ever played Half-Life 2, there's the Citadel Tower that's pretty much visible in every map somewhere in the background. And as the game progresses, you get closer and further to the Citadel Tower, so it's larger and smaller and kind of gives you a sense that you're really kind of wandering around the city. All right, so just using the smooth tool again to kind of integrate our new cliff a little better. If I had more time, I would probably spend more time sculpting this, but for now, I think this will be fine.
It's so easy to get lost with these tools.
Absolutely. Gonna kind of sculpt around the bottom a little bit just to kind of give a better transition into the rest of the terrain. All right, Oh, wow, we're already 20 minutes in. I should spend less time doing this and start
Time.
getting into other features.
Yeah, freaking flies.
Yep. Okay.
We also have a few compliments in
Oh,
chat.
compliments. All right.
Um, so Flashy Raccoon says Brendan goes click, 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 boom, great looking terrain.
Hmm.
And then Hines says, wow, you can do that. And Osbarney says, these are really great tips.
Great. I'm glad that people are getting something useful.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, and then related to the like peak of interest or point of interest,
mhm.
Hines says, I have 3 points of interest in my game that you need to climb. I really like Zelda Breath of the Wild
Yes,
vision when you start. You
another
see
great
the whole world.
example. Yes, another great example.
Yeah.
And Hyrule Castle, you just see it all the time. Basically, you can see the beam of light coming out of the top, and yeah, same exact idea.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got a little entrance to a little Moria entrance possibly going on here, and I'm not going to worry too much about carving the actual tunnel right now, but I'll at least get it started just so I kind of have a point, have an idea of what it'll look like. Let's see. I've got the level tool again, and I'm going to hold Alt, Alt to get height, get it removed. Ooh, too much height. How big do we want our tunnel to be? We want it to be, let's say, 8 meters tall. Okay, so I'm just going to click with the level tool and drag back into the mountain. And as long as I'm holding Alt, it's subtracting voxels, so that's how I'm able to carve a little tunnel like that. So, there, that'll be our little dungeon entrance. Okay.
Ah. Oh, and then Elzion had a question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you use flatten and trim? I have trouble with those.
I
Oh, sorry.
do. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, no, continue.
Yeah, they are kind of special case, and really you just have to play with them a lot to really get a feel for how they work. I totally get that they're hard to use. The trim tool. What I like most about the trim tool is the Alt mode. It's kind of like you're carving away like a layer of clay, if this were a clay sculpt. So you can kind of sculpt away at a hard edge and kind of flatten it out with that. I did a
Hmm.
lot of the canyon in Core Royale this way, by laying out some big blocky round bits and then kind of using the trim tool to flatten bits of it out. And then if you use the normal mode without Alt and you just kind of click, it's kind of a fill-in gap, fill in a crevice kind of tool is how I kind of see it. That's when I mostly use these two tools,
Hmm.
or this particular tool. And then the flatten tool is definitely a finicky one. I believe what it just does is it picks the angle of whatever you click on and tries to replicate that out. I need to play with the flatten tool more before I give actual information on how it works. Um, it's a fully featured terrain system, and there's clearly I've been using it a lot already, and there's still stuff I don't know about it. So I would say
Dang.
explore and try stuff out, get creative with it.
Yeah.
But I do know a little bit about the trim tool, which I just showed.
Ooh, and then Heinz asked, I joined the stream a little bit late. What
Mhm.
is the goal of this map? Oh, that's a good
That is a
question.
good question. So I don't really have a good design for this. This is an art stream, so I figured I'd just
Mhm.
mainly focus on the art side of things. If I were to make
Mhm.
this into a full actual level, I would, first of all, figure out what kind of game it'd be. Is it, player versus environment? Probably because it's a fantasy game or whatever.
Mm.
But I would actually maybe white box the whole thing first. Figure out exactly where I want everything to be without getting into any actual details or painting or sculpting or anything yet. Um, yeah, but for now, this is just making a cool little area to explore. That's all it is. Um,
Cool.
yeah, so we were going to do a road. So let's see. Let me do that really quick. So um, one of the things about the way people make roads in games, the easiest thing to do is just like, oh, I'm just going to paint a strip of dirt. Come on now. Why are we not painting a strip of dirt? There we go. And ta-da, it's a road, right? But a road is not really crafted that way usually. You don't see roads that just kind of go willy-nilly up and over hills. So if you want a road that looks a little more integrated and better, I would say do a little sculpting first. Same thing I did with the
Oh.
with the level tool to make that ramp. Just kind of like you know, whoever engineered the road is going to make some effort to, you know, flatten an area out a bit. So kind of like figure out where our road's going to go. It'll kind of come along this valley here, and then maybe.
Wow.
Oh no, this is still the natural terrain.
I'm
um,
like,
yeah, but it, you know, I kind of let's see, let's kind of make it follow this kind of natural crevice a little bit, right? So.
I mean, it seems so simple when you put it like that, but I
Mm-hmm.
never would have considered like thinking about how the road is built.
Mm-hmm.
That's so
You know,
cool.
the hills along it will be, you know, carved into a little bit. You know, what do they call it?
Yeah.
A side cut or whatever it is. Um, so let's see. That's good enough for now. We don't have to get too crazy with it. And then again, I'll come back with my smooth brush and just kind of flatten out these transitions. And now that we kind of have a decent little path for it,
Mm-hmm.
um, now I'm actually going to paint. And so our default materials here are grass, kind of forest leaves, dirt, and snow. I don't
Mm-hmm.
plan to use snow. I'm going to replace the snow really quick. Like I said, you can use any material. It doesn't have to be a nature material. And we've got a lot of good like brick and cobblestone materials. So if we want a cobblestone road, I can kind of start painting cobblestone. That's probably a little too strong. Let's make this road a little more worn and older looking. There you go. A little bit of a cobble path. Let's see, where did we go? We went through this crevice here. So. Probably good time for questions. Anybody has any while I do
Let's
this?
see. No further questions.
Mm-hmm.
Hein says it seems so simple. Ha ha. Yeah, that's how I feel. I'm like, what? Why did I literally never consider like
uh,
how people man. Oh, Heinz asks, is it a good idea to place lots of grass everywhere?
so we'll get into the foliage system next.
Heck yeah.
What you want to do if you want a lot of grass is you want to let the foliage system do all the hard work for you. It'll save you a lot. See, Todd, this is a perfect example of what I was talking about. I didn't smooth this out ahead of time. I missed it.
Ooh.
And now,
Ah.
as I smooth it, come on. No, I turned the strength down too far. Strength of 0 is not going to do anything for me.
Oh man.
Yeah. You know what? We're just going to leave that little bump in there. That's fine. But the foliage system will place grass for you, and it will be more performant when it does, because all of the grass is placed client side and runs, I believe, through some clever instancing tech.
Oh nice.
Yeah. And there is definitely, you know, it still has its limitations, which we can demonstrate probably. Okay. Enough with the road. Actually, not enough with the road, because I'm not actually content to have just these cobblestones. I want to blend in some dirt as well.
Ooh, a question from Carbide Core.
Mm-hmm.
He asks, Brendan, any way to adjust the sensitivity of the sculpting tool? Sometimes I have a hard time shaping shallow things and it digs out too
Yes,
much.
that is also a pet peeve of mine. I mean, there is the strength. Strength does exist for all of them, but yeah, you have to get pretty touchy with the lower end if you want to. Yeah, strength is the only thing that you have to control it right now. But I'm hoping that we will tune the way strength is applied so that it is not so dramatic when you make a small change. Yeah.
Mm.
You can also, with some tools, let's see, like with the shape tool, there's something called the stride. That might help you a little bit too. Let me bring the size down here a little bit. So right now, if I were to just click and drag, it's making us, a solid continuous strip. But
Hmm.
if you up the stride a little bit, what this does is it adds a little space between each brush stroke. If I turn it up higher, you can really see what it does. It's like a step. So that's another way you can kind of control sensitivity. Just maybe adding a little bit of stride to it. That way, especially with the surface tool, if you click and hold with the surface tool, it just keeps going, 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 going. If you add a little bit of stride, it's only going to do it's going to do one click at a time.
Mm.
So you have a lot more control that way.
And
Hopefully that
then
helps.
we have more questions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see. Mr. Dr. Roboto Man says, I may have missed this, but when building up your terrain, how do you keep it from building up towards the camera?
Okay, that gets a little more technical. So with the surface tool, I believe there are a bunch of settings. Where are they exactly? So yeah, so let me turn the stride back off. Right, so it's building towards the camera because it's basically just projecting down the view of the camera. I'm picking that. Now,
Hmm.
where was it? Somewhere in here. Let's see. 2D brush. What is that deal? Let me sculpt it. Okay, so it looks like 2D brush. If you click that, will always sculpt straight up. So that might
Oh,
be
nice.
a solution right there. With the shape brush, I believe you have a lot more. Yeah, you have this alignment drop down, which gives you a lot more control. So if you align to view, I think it's perpendicular to your view. So if you click and drag, yeah, this little alignment thing comes up and you can see exactly the plane that you're painting on. So that's a useful way to do it. These other ones, let's see, align to ground. I think that just keeps it, yeah, horizontal. And up will always keep it vertical. So that's, if you use the shape tool, you'll get a lot more control of that. Yeah.
Whoa. Cool.
Hopefully that answers the question there.
Okay, and one more question. This is from Skual. I'm not sure if this is the right stream to ask, but would we happen to have a timeline for adding collision for foliage? Okay, this is an
So
interesting one.
from what I understand, there will probably never be collision for foliage, and that's just because that's the way foliage is done. It is client side only, and that's why we get the great performance boost from it.
Hmm.
But I will talk about what you can do if you want to have trees, for instance, that have collision. I
Yay.
was planning to cover that in just a minute.
Ooh,
Um,
okay, sorry to
yeah,
spoil.
no problem. So something I just did is I realized because of the order of my materials, I was trying to paint dirt that went under the bricks, kind of in between the bricks, and it just wasn't working. So I ended up painting the whole road with dirt first, and then now I'm going back over with the cobblestones and kind of adding them back in. And I'm doing a pretty quick job, rush job of this. Um, I want to show a little trick really quick, actually,
Yay, I love tricks.
because we are going to start getting into foliage next. So I kind of stole this from Jordan, but I'm going to add a piece of foliage really quick. But I'm not actually going to add a plant. I'm going to add, let's see, what is it? I'm going to add a little cobblestone,
Oh, cool.
and I'm going to
Oh, and then
go ahead.
oh, sorry. I was going to say, Heinz says, I saw a stream where plants were moving while the player's moving. That was probably someone manually placing the like plants and foliage objects. So what foliage painting does is it makes it easier to kind of place foliage everywhere. But you can still go in and manually place it. You can also place it with the object generator, which Brendan, if you don't have time to cover or don't feel like
That
covering, I
that
will
is
cover.
no, that is what I was planning to cover.
Okay, sorry, I keep.
No problem.
Cool.
So, anyways, I used the foliage editor just now to add stone blocks, to the
Ooh.
cobblestone material. So, yeah, so I just picked what channel I wanted, and now there's a little bit of 3D to the road of some kind of
Awesome.
scattered bits of debris, and those will just get automatically populated in as I paint more based on whatever settings I've chosen there.
Cool.
why are you not erasing? Oh, I gotta use the grass. Okay.
Oh, and then this is actually a question from me and not from chat. Um, so, in foliage painting, if you erase foliage, is there a way to add foliage back to the area you erased it from?
Okay. Lots of questions about foliage painting. Let's just dive into it,
Woohoo!
and hopefully
Sorry.
we can cover all of these. No, that's fine. Um, okay, so let's first of all, for the people who haven't used it, let me just do a quick. We'll add some grass and stuff. Oh, whoops. And then we can kind of talk about details. So, um, gonna add grass. Actually, before I add grass, there's something that I want to do. I want to tweak the colors of this a little bit first. So I'm going to open the editor for the material editor really quick, and I'm just going to bring the grass. I want to make it a little darker. Just kind of the maybe not quite like that. But by default, all our plants and stuff have this kind of these nice bright hues, and I just kind of want to make it a little more. That's probably too much. Oh yeah, that's way too much. Just kind of go for a little more darker, grittier kind of look, if possible. Just because that's kind of the fantasy I like. That's
Oh, cool.
this is maybe too dark. Yeah, I take it. I have regrets. And then when I place grass with the foliage tool, I want to be able to match that. So I'm gonna just place one piece of grass right now and see how it looks in the color that I've chosen. Looks okay, but I am gonna make a new custom grass material. And I'm just gonna say darker grass tall. This is I did the same thing in my last stream, but when you create foliage, you don't have any direct control over the color, but you can assign a custom material to it. So if you have a custom material already that exists for that same piece of foliage, then you add that foliage, which I'm about to do. Got our tall grass. And the first thing I'm going to do is swap the material of that grass for my custom darker tall grass. And it matches my recolored grass in the train just a little bit better. Now somebody was asking about density. This is where you control that. So performance is kind of driven by, well, it's driven by how many are on screen at any one time. The spawn distance determines how far away the renderer will show grass. The grass will spawn instances. So you can see grass kind of goes up this hill and then it kind of stops when you get to the top there. And if we cut that down to 100 meters, see 128 is the minimum. It's controlled by the spawn distance and also this cull distance. So spawn distance means that there actually is a piece of grass there. Cull distance is whether it's visible or not. I'm probably getting a little too technical with this right now. So let's let me just get back. Okay, so I'm reducing the spawn distance a little bit because what I want to do is reduce the number of meters between each blade of grass because I want the grass to be dense. So I'm going to cut it down to something like 3 or 2. Now we're getting kind of more of a full grassy field effect, right?
So lush.
Yeah. But now there's a lot more grass instances on the screen, so that's going to be a performance hit. That's why I brought the spawn distance down a little bit. And you can see kind of as you move forward, you can see it fading in, and that's based on the fade is based on the min and max of the cull. So if you have values that are close to each other, the fade will be shorter. So if I go to like 130, 150, the little transition area is a lot sharper. Where if I did like 50 to 150, you can see it's a much more gradual transition as they fade in. Okay, something else I want to do. right now all the grass is aligned to point straight up, so we're getting grass that hovers. Um, yes, you're going to say
Yes.
something?
I was yeah. I was like, I see this all the time in
Right,
some
right.
games. So
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, this is such a." I'll just let you get to it
Yep,
then.
yep. So
This is a good trick.
there's a little drop down called rotation alignment, and if you change that to align to surface, then all of the grass will, yeah, it'll change to align
Oh, so
more
beautiful.
organically. Yep. So, and now somebody was asking about erasing foliage, and as you can see, we've got grass that's kind of growing in our road,
Mhm.
which kind of works for an old, beaten track that nobody's using anymore. But where is the erase foliage button? I believe this is it. Yeah. So yes, you can erase foliage like this, and it just basically lays down a zone that says don't spawn any foliage here. Of course, I realize now that this will actually probably affect our little cobblestone foliage as well. So I'm just going to be a little careful. I'm
Oh.
going to be a little careful with it and only hit the spots that have grass right now. And I believe the question was, can you paint it back in? And I believe you can if you turn on debug mode. You can see it'll color code everything that you've painted, and the checkerboard is where we painted with the erase. So if you now hold the Alt button, whenever you're doing any sort of painting or sculpting, usually the Alt key will reverse whatever whatever the tool normally does. So if this normally erases foliage, I believe if you hold Alt, it reverses that effect. So that answers that question, I believe.
Heck yeah, that was my
All
question.
right, all right. Um, so yeah, and you don't even have to have the debug mode on to do it. I think if you just hold Alt and paint in an area, yep, it'll spawn it back in. So it is possible. The foliage brush does. The erase foliage brush is, like I said, it's universal across all foliage. Um, so one way we could get around it if we didn't want to be erasing our cobblestones at the same time as the grass is basically just paint the cobblestones in thicker. So I've got the strength and target value all the way up for the cobblestones. Going to reduce the size a little bit. I'm just going to paint more cobblestone though, because the grass is only going to spawn where there's grass material painted. And so if I just eliminate the grass, whatever, there's grass spawning here because like somewhere under this, you can see there's a blend where the grass and the dirt still blend together. So it's picking it up as grass, and it's like, oh, it's okay to spawn some grass here because we've got grass. But yeah, that's one way to do it, or just using the erase foliage button. So, okay, let's do some more foliage. We've got about 15 minutes left, but we can do a lot
Mhm.
more than just have some grass. People were asking about collision and foliage, so let me do something here. Yeah, like we've talked about, the foliage will never collide with the player. Oh, Jesus. I need to move my spawn point because it is under the terrain.
Oh, that's another thing I see
Mm-hmm.
asked a lot on our Discord or even sometimes across our social media. People say, I keep falling through the floor.
Ah,
Spawn points.
yeah, if your spawn point is under, well, if there's nothing under your spawn point, then of course the player will fall. I believe I saw that there's something worth noting, which is if you have just one terrain in your scene, you should be fine. It should always collide. Um, but if you hit the little terrain drop down, you see that it shows the terrain that I have, and it says primary. Really, here, I'll just do this really quick. If I were to add a second terrain, which is totally possible, you get this little pop-up that says only one terrain can be primary and have collision. And that's just telling you that this new blue terrain that I've created, you'll always fall
Mhm.
through it because for performance reasons, it's really only viable for us to have one terrain that's collidable. And the way you change that is once you have two terrains in the list, you can change it by setting primary here. So it's entirely possible that maybe that person, let me just say it really quick, maybe they deleted their primary terrain. I don't know if it automatically sets, yeah. And so I don't think it automatically sets the new terrain, the non-primary terrain as primary. when you do that. So way to fix it is just go back to the list, set primary, and it will now hopefully collide. Yeah, that's my guess of what happened. Um,
Hmm.
and that's definitely, yeah, something that can happen and to be aware of. And hopefully my undo stack remembers my old terrain. Great.
Yay.
And let's just check really quick. Yep, it's set as primary, so it'll still collide. Okay, more foliage. The next thing I want to add is trees. And I said I wasn't going to add trees as foliage, but I lied.
Ah, Brendan.
But I'm not going to do it how people think. You know, it's really easy to just add trees. I'm like, oh, great, now I have a forest. This is not what I want. First of all, it's way too many trees. The density is too high, so let's see, like 30 meters apart. 25. What I'm going to use foliage trees for is to just put trees in the background. I want to bring the spawn distance all the way up, and then bring the cull distances up to match. 2,000, 8,900. So we should see trees just about everywhere now, because it's basically to the extent of our terrain. I just want to keep the trees on the hills. That, since they're not collidable, if they're up on the hills, the player probably will never run into them, and so you don't have to worry. So it's right now, just to demonstrate, I can run straight through this tree. You probably don't want that in your map. It's kind of weird.
Oh, yeah, it is a little odd feeling.
Yep. So one of the controls in the foliage editor is there is this height min and max. So I can actually say I only want trees to start at, say, 50 meters up the slope. And I apparently picked a pretty good value because it's now only putting the trees on tops of the hills.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And so, yeah, just kind of coming up with some background trees. Want to change some other things. Oh, I want to change this for the grass as well. The slope of the ground that the trees are placed on. I don't want trees just kind of growing out of cliffs like this. This is weird. So I'm going to bring down the max slope that trees are allowed to be placed on. So something like half that, 45 degrees. Now they're only getting placed kind of where there's flatter ground. Something else, let's add some, for a little bit of more variety to the trees. I'm going to change the min and max scale that they're allowed to have. And then something I see a lot, which I think people should definitely pay attention to, is that a lot of them are kind of sticking out of the ground a little bit. And that's easy to fix. There's this height, let's see, local Z offset. If you just change that to like -1 meter, it'll drop them down on the ground a little more, and it'll hide that transition a lot better.
Oh, wow.
Look a lot more natural, you know. Let's say -1.5 to really get these ones that are kind of standing out. So yeah, and let me grab the grass really quick and change the max slope angle on that to be about the same. So that way we don't have grass growing over our big rocky cliff sections. We'll probably turn it up a little more so that it comes up to the bottom of that cliff, at least. Oh, too much. It's like 55. All right, close enough. Okay, we've got trees and grass. Now, since we've only got 8 minutes left, let's talk about foreground trees. If you want trees that have collision, let's talk about the object generator. So the object generator is something that we developed before we had the terrain foliage. You need, I prefer using a cube to do this. Basically because anything you use will actually be interpreted as a cube. It just uses the bounding box of any object. So, making this big object in the sky. Why am I doing this? I'm not actually going to use this for anything except for the tool itself. So I'm going to go to View. I'm going to go to, where is it? Object Generator. What the object generator panel serves two purposes. So when you, here's one use of it. If you have I'm going to go trees. If you have any object selected in the catalog down here, and you press X with your mouse over the 3D viewport, it will place that object wherever you have the mouse. This is kind of a secret hotkey that not everybody knows about. Yeah, and it will, looks like by default, it will align to whatever surface you place it on. So you can see the trees are kind of coming out there. But you also notice that the trees are all oriented exactly the same way. If you hold Shift while you place X, Shift X, Shift X will place the object and it will use whatever settings exist in this object generator panel. Oop, come back. So right now you see I have a min and max scale of 0.9 and 1.4. So if I hold Shift and click enough times, you'll see I'm getting trees of different sizes. I can make it a little more dramatic just to make it more obvious. Yeah, so I'm getting big trees, getting some little trees.
This is like Bob Ross
happy,
2.0,
happy little trees.
the 21st century, yes.
Yep. And I'm using this randomize yaw thing, so you'll notice they rotate as well if I'm holding Shift X.
An official 5-minute warning mark for the stream.
Thank you very much.
Oh my goodness, that went by so fast.
I know. So that's how the object generator, that's how the settings work. And then we have this special feature where if you click on, so if you have some object selected in your scene already, click an object in the catalog. You can hit this spawn selected asset under hierarchy object. It's a very mouthful of a button. But this kind of works the same as the foliage tool. I want to say, so in between distance, same thing. Let's say 30 meters. Randomness. So if I turn this to 0, let me just do this really quick. Max slope, let's make it the same. I'm going to press the button. And what I created was a perfect grid of oak trees. So if you set your randomness to 0, you can basically make an orchard.
Cool. Heinz says this really exists. OMG. I love that reaction.
Yep.
Oh, and then Mr. Dr. Roboto Man says, can you use kit bashed objects with the object generator?
Yes, you can.
Great question.
So this is one great advantage that the object generator has that the foliage tool does not, is you can use any template as your object to spawn. So if I wanted, for instance, let's grab I'm going to put a sword in the scene, which I believe will add it. Yep, it adds it as a template automatically. I can now, oh, I deleted my cube. Come back, cube. Let's say I just wanted to fill an area with swords. I know we're running short on time. Okay. Grabbing the sword template, spawn asset. Swords everywhere. More swords. I'm gonna delete my cube. Like I said, these are all sword templates, which means you can pick them all up. And that works with anything that has scripts, etc., etc. So yeah, you do not get the performance that you get from using the foliage editor. These are all actual objects that exist in the game. It is just a shorthand for placing a lot of them at once with a bunch of random settings.
Oh, Flashy Raccoon says, haha, they're blades. Blades of grass, that's so good. Yes. And
Flashy
then,
Raccoon with the puns.
Heinz asks, can you use a trigger instead of a cube for the object generator as a mask?
That is a great question. I usually just create a cube and then throw a transparent material on there. Is that like some sort of, let's see, like one of the effects materials or something? Let's see. There we go. Additive edge line. It's a pretty good one. It's mostly faded, but you can still kind of see it. Let me try it with trigger really quick. Create triggers. gameplay objects. Trigger. Just gonna grab something randomly. Skulls. Spawn me some skulls. It does work with the trigger. Yeah, that's good to know.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And that's great, because then you don't have to delete it every time. It can just exist in your scene and just be, because that'll be invisible the minute you play. So, yeah. Anyways,
oh my gosh, 1 minute
1 minute
remaining,
left.
Brendan.
All right. Well, clearly we have a lot more to get to in future streams. We didn't even get to building our little shrine or adding more foliage types. I mean, I would never let a scene go with just grass and trees. That's just lazy. That's lazy. Yeah. Thanks for joining me, Tasha. And
Oh my gosh, I literally always learn so much from these streams.
Well, I am always happy to do them.
Yay.
And yeah, hopefully we'll do another one soon.
I hope so too.
All
and
right.
immediately after this, folks, is Core Academy, how to use game components with our wonderful programmer, Eric. So stay tuned. Literally happening like right after this.
That guy's a genius. You should listen to him.
I love it. Awesome.
All right. This is Brendan signing off. We'll see you later.
Ooh, bye guys.